Those are items that are on the agenda for the town board to receive information. If there's anybody in attendance who wishes to be part of the conversation, then just wait till you're recognized until the board has had their discussion, and then you can chime in. So the first item this evening is park development fees. Mr. Lucas.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. So tonight we're going to talk about park impact fees. I wanted to give you a brief history on how we got to where we're at today. So in 2003, the town did a master plan for Parks and Recreation Department, and throughout that plan, what became quite apparent was that based on development and growth, we were running short of enough funding to purchase the land that was going to be required and also develop the land that we needed for our park system as we continue to grow. So in 2003 and then early in 2004, did a park impact study, and that study really modified our existing neighborhood and community park fees, kind of did a lot more math involved, and updated those. And so what you have is the model that we've been using since 2004 throughout every year leading up to today. And that has really served the town well. And what I mean by that is, as you know, we've been nationally recognized based on our population as having a fabulous park system. 92% of our residents are within a 10-minute walk of a park or recreational amenity. And a great example would be nationwide, there's this big mayoral challenge to get their cities and towns into this 10-minute walk standard. I've not asked our mayor that to champion that, because we've already accomplished it. But nationwide, all these other communities are trying to catch up to the standard that really Windsor is one of the leaders nationally when it comes to that percentage. So I wanted to share with you what our impact fees look like today. So you see on the screen, neighborhood park fee is $3,800, almost $3,900. Community park fee is $1,300, and then fee in lieu, which is if we chose to not get the park land, the developer could pay us the acreage equivalent in that money. Just so you're aware, those numbers adjust annually, typically in late January, February, based upon the Denver Boulder CPI. So they do typically go up every year.
That's price per acre.
That is price per acre, correct. And there's a math formula. So for example, if a developer comes in and I want to develop a 100-acre subdivision, we do the math and it says, well, you have to give us, dedicate us X number of acres, or if we chose not to get the land, we could say multiply that acres.
But the neighborhood park fee and the community park fee is per house.
That is per unit.
Per unit.
Per unit. So to bring it to speed and kind of a little bit as to why we're here tonight, if you remember in 2016 we updated our master plan. Throughout 16 we talked a lot about what does the park system look at build out, and that gets us to this map here. And so if you remember back then the discussion, and ultimately you approved, I want to say early 17, we know what our park system will look at build out. So we have Village East Park, which is going to be under construction this year. Wayne Miller Park is a future neighborhood park. Jacoby Farm, we just completed a master plan this year, so once we actually own the property, that will get developed. Windshire is a developer build neighborhood park that's in the pipeline to be built this year. Talkin' Hollow, we will own through a development agreement. Fossil Creek will be a neighborhood park, and that has actually gone to planning for review initial stages, so that one's in the pipeline as well. Harmony Ridge up on top, that one is another neighborhood park that's in the pipeline and in development agreement. So with the exception of this parcel down here, which we've been talking about recently and hope to bring you a contract in the next week or two, if that happens, we will own or have the right to own through development agreement all of our parkland through build out. So we know what the end game is in regards to land acquisition and then what potentially the costs are to build out that site. So then also in the master plan 16 was this Objective, evaluate park impact fees, park land dedication, and fees in lieu to ensure that they continually cover expected costs. So if we know what our build out is, and we can do the math now and figure out what's it gonna cost to build out, that's why I'm here tonight, because I can tell you that if we stick with the same model that we have today and don't make a change, two things will happen. We will be short when it comes to building out, we won't have the funds to build on those lands. And on the neighborhood park side, once we're built out, if we're still collecting funds or have a balance and we don't have anything to spend it on, the way the ordinance is currently written, we have to give it back. So that is the impetus for why we're here tonight, is we know what the end game is, and yet if we don't change our system, we're gonna sit with a fund balance over here that eventually need to give back and be severely short on the community park side. So, and that's explained, probably hard to see it on the screen, but that's explained in your packet. So you can see at the end of this year, end of 18, with the projects that we have budgeted, we'll have a balance of $1 million in the community park fund. On the neighborhood, and then with a build out of about 32 million. So we're 31 million short in today's funding, today's construction dollar. On the neighborhood park side, we'll be about $3.8 million in fund balance with projected costs of 3.6. So basically,
But you don't have anything under Village East or Windshire.
so Village East and Windshire are up here right here. So it says West Village East Park. So we're
Okay.
building that. Windshire is being built by the developer. And so that developer will build it, and then when it's done and we accept it, it's deeded to us. So it's not costing us.
Okay.
So the bottom line is, on the neighborhood park side, we have enough money to build out. On the community park side, we are severely short. So what I wanted to talk to you tonight about was a recommended fee change, which basically is combining our two fees into one park impact fee. And I use the term park because what I'd like to do is work with Ian on the language so that if in the future we needed or changed our minds and wanted to build another neighborhood park, it could go for a neighborhood park or it could go for a community park. It doesn't matter. Let's call it one fee, park impact fee for parks, period.
Because what I would want it to cover too, and I haven't even chatted with you about this yet, because I already know your imagination will go really wild. But
Where'd you get that?
should we consider regional parks? And there are two ideas on the east or west side of town about some regional parks. I would want to make sure that any kind of fees or funds might be able to transfer to that if it would work out.
Okay.
I mean, just keep that in mind.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Well, and it also says trails.
It does.
Okay,
So,
well, yeah, so I want to know how inclusive it is, right?
correct.
Right.
And so what I'm suggesting is combine the two fees. It has a zero impact on the developers. They're already paying the same amount in community and neighborhood park. It's just putting them together so the money is exactly the same. So the example here that I show you is if there was a 1,000-unit development, did the fees at that rate, the developer would pay 5.2, well, it actually wouldn't be the developer, it would be the building permit as they're pooled. So $5.2 million. Under the current system, the same number of units being developed, it would be 3.8 million on neighborhood park and 1.3 in community park. The result is a net zero, so it does not impact the developer in any way beyond what it already impacts them today.
So you're not suggesting to raise the price at all?
Not at this moment, and the reason why is we would probably, my suggestion would be, if we wanted to do that, and eventually I think we might have to consider that, we should bring in a consultant to do a study. That is not something that I would suggest staff do in-house. I think that takes some outside knowledge of what other communities are charging, and then what's the ultimate build out of the system. So what I'm asking for tonight is just kind of a nod of approval that you're good with staff beginning to work with Ian to draft some ordinance language around this singular park fee. And Ken, to your question around trails, I would say that money could be used for anything that's in the park system for acquisition and or build out. So for example, it could go to a community park, it could go to a neighborhood park, it could go to trails. I'd love to chat a little more on the regional piece.
He's getting all excited.
Maybe. So,
I had another question.
sure.
Let's imagine some point in the future, 10 years, 15 years down the road, there's still maybe homes being built,
Mhm.
we've got our community parks taken care of, and neighborhoods. Could these funds be used for open space?
Potentially. The only thing that, and I think this might go back to Christie's point about actually studying and then potentially raising the fees, the impact fee, is the $32 million or $31 million, what I'll call shortfall at this, as we sit today. Trying to get to that number
Yeah.
would be in my head at this moment, top priority, because we own the land and we would need to build out for the residents. But things like additional trails, open space, community buffers, those kind of things,
Yeah.
yes, I would say conceptually, yes, it works that way,
Depending on our funding.
depending on the fund balance.
Yeah.
Because, for example, if we chose to use the money to build $1 million trail or buy a $1 million piece of open space, that would
Right.
make that gap larger on the build out of the community parks.
And I know we've had this discussion before, but I just want to clarify. There is not a way to ever allow those funds to be used for any kind of maintenance.
Correct. Correct.
That's,
Because, I mean, that's the conundrum that we're in on the Poudre River Trail right now. We have a good trail system, but it is in massive need of maintenance dollars. And at some point, we might be built out in terms of
Correct.
parks,
Correct.
let's just say,
Mhm.
and even our trail system. Then what, and at that point, probably there would be limited building also going on, I would assume, if you're that far. But at the same time, if there was, what are you gonna do with those funds? You can never create maintenance,
No,
something?
well, you can. That is, so, and if you, I included in your packet the list of action items from the master plan.
yeah.
That's in there as well.
That's in
there.
So as I stated last year, we know what build out is now. So now we're trying to work through the master plan and the goals and objectives there of, we know what build out is, we know what it's gonna cost, how do we get there? And then I think the next step is, you're spot on. How do we pay for the perpetual, if that's the right word,
Right.
perpetuity, maintenance of
Right.
our parks and trail system?
Right.
So that would argue that is the next big hurdle, is to
Right.
figure that out. So, go ahead.
Quick question. The map of the master plan that you had up there a minute ago. There we go. So we've obviously got that big gap from the kind of contiguous bubble, and then we've got the Harmony Ridge. I assume that if,
You talking about right here?
yeah, so I assume if at some point, due to future development, that became annexed and was going to have residential, at that point, we might look at adding a neighborhood park. to
We
it.
could if we wanted to. If you remember the discussions that occurred in 16 and 17. Talk and call it as a community park. We decided that we had built enough neighborhood parks that neighborhood parks cost more to maintain over the long term than community parks. So when we were at 92% ability of our residents to walk to a park, we made a conscious decision to say, okay, we know what neighborhood parks are. Let's work on our trail system to community parks. So for example, if this is a big community park, it's 30-some acres. If there's homes over here or over here, our goal is to connect them with trails to the community park to serve. So for example,
So
you
they
look at
might
a
be
big
at
park
some
that might serve
10-minute
5
walk.
neighborhoods instead of
Okay.
one park in all 5 neighborhoods. So,
Gotcha.
you know, build 1 instead of 5. That was the thinking and why you see that bubble. And if you, just for people in the room to remind everybody, this area down in here doesn't have a park because it has its own park system. Same thing like in Water Valley. We don't show a park. It has its own park system. And the green you're seeing is golf courses. We do not consider that as part of our park system either. So what I'm asking for tonight is if conceptually you're okay, I'll start working on some language with Ian, come back in a future work session, go over it again with the actual language. If you're good with that, then we will come to the town board to adopt a new ordinance and get to a singular park impact fee. And so you know, basically at that time, we'll be running 3 accountings. So if we, assuming that gets adopted, we'll run the new one. And then anybody else who's already in the development queue or paying already in the neighborhood and community park, we will maintain those while they build out. Eventually they go away. And then over here will be the new one. And over time, these 2 will go away and we'll just have one.
So we
Because
can't immediately.
We
commingle the
we
fund.
cannot commingle the funds.
There's no way to change them.
What you've collected, what you collect up through the point where code language changes,
Right.
that has to stay in the funds that they were collected in.
Of course, sir.
Eric, from the work discussions that we've had and the discussions that you've had with us, I think this looks like a good plan, and I'd say go and make it happen.
Yeah, I think it makes absolute sense. It allows the town to be able to be more flexible with the dollars as the studies or as our community dictates,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
So we can meet those needs and not be restricted or have to give them back.
Yes.
I think the most
Yeah.
important thing.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
So, item 2,
I'm sorry.
are completed with park development fees. Scott is going to lead us into our next discussion, which is Weld RE4 building permit fee waiver discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. I think everybody knows Stephanie. If you want to introduce your team.
You bet. Nice to see you all. Thanks for having us. This is Kurt Remigay. He's our Director of Maintenance and Operations. And then we have Travis Jarrett with RLH Engineering. They're our owner's rep for our bond projects.
And we've also got Russ Weber with Safe Built
Right.
as well. So,
Everybody knows Wade.
What are you doing?
I don't know. Wrong meeting. Just want to get the comparison, okay? Okay, so yeah, as the memo states, we're expecting 9 permits if we haven't already received them. I know Safe Built's starting to look at those drawings, but 9 permits for school projects in the Windsor schools that were associated with the bond issue. And these are all interior remodels primarily, so we're not talking about any road impact fees, drainage fees, or any of those impact fees tonight. We're really only talking about the building permit fee, the plan review fee, and the admin fee that the town collects. And so Russ and I met with Stephanie and her team several months ago in anticipation of this request. And the goal of our task was to compare how much the fees would be if the school district went through the state for permitting, which they have that option to do, or if they go through the town's process, which can be more responsive and timely instead of waiting for state inspectors to come out and those types of things. The goal was for us to compare our fees to the state fees and try and make them match as much as possible. So what we have in this comparison, in the left column under estimated state fees, you can see what the states, and I've actually, if you need a hard copy, I can pass around if anybody wants. The left-hand blue column represents what the state building permit fee calculator spits out when you enter the valuation of the project. And then the 3 gray columns in the middle are what Windsor's normal what normal fees would be. And actually, I wouldn't say normal, they actually reflect review, or a fee based on 30% valuation instead of the normal 65%. So we went with a 30% valuation, and you can see that the fees under that scenario would actually still be about $20,000 more than the, or a little less than $20,000 more than the state fees. And we weren't really able to nail down where those differences were, because the state's calculator is kind of, you put the number in and it spits something back, and we don't know where all the differences are. But anyway, we do know where we can manipulate the town's fees and Safe Build's fees. And so the far right two columns show two different scenarios that the town board may want to consider to bring those closer in line with the state. And that is, the second to the right is if the town were to waive the fees that are under our purview. And I say that because we obviously can't waive the fees that go to Safe Built, because that's paying for their services. But if we waive the admin fees that the town keeps, and if we waive the 20% of the permit fees that we keep, and then we pass along 80% to Safe Built, that would bring the number, actually it would bring it down a little bit less than what the state fees would be. And if you weren't comfortable doing that, then the far right column shows if we only waived this town's admin fees, but we retained the 20% that we normally retain, then it's about a 10,000, yeah, about an $8,000 difference, so. So that's really, in a nutshell. If you have any questions, I think we've got everybody here to answer anything.
What's the impact to the town if we waive the administrative fees?
Well, it's our in-house permit technician, they'll still be doing the work. It's just, we'd be foregoing those fees, I guess. I don't,
Okay, so no other, okay.
yeah.
What about if we forego the entire town fee? Is that still just kind of manpower time that
Yeah,
we're adding to the workload without necessarily adding?
yeah, we wouldn't be
income
taking
per
in
se?
fees for that workload, but we would be covering our costs with Safe Built.
So it's a total of $19,000 we would waive. And
Right,
obviously.
So this isn't what we would waive, this is what the school would pay.
We would waive the $19,000.
correct.
So this was kind of confusing
Oh, they would not
as
pay us
we were looking at this,
$19,000.
yeah.
If we waive the fees, they will not pay us
So you pay
$19,000.
39 instead of
39.
58.
Right.
Right,
Exactly.
these are the
So
numbers the
I
school
suppose
would
what I say
get.
is I think we're all really valuable, a strong school system for our community. And I'm in favor of waiving the total,
Mhm.
all of our fees.
Sure.
We give some pretty good packages to development and so forth. And this is a real function of our community, I think, so.
Mhm.
As long as there's no serious ripple effect or negative effect to staff or town, I think we're gonna waive them.
I would agree.
Just where or how do you account for that then? Because
Yeah.
you
So-
account by project, I would assume.
Yeah,
So you're gonna just show a loss on that
There'll
particular
be a-
project, or?
There'll be a total of 9 permits that come in, and we will probably need to reflect the 58,000 being what would normally be due and account for that difference. We'll just need to figure out how to have a paper trail so that the auditor can see that those fees were waived. Whether we collect 58,000 and write a check back for the waived amount, I don't know. I'd have to talk to
Oh.
Dean how that, how the auditor wants to see.
But you
it.
will have to account for it somehow,
Right.
because you do calculate
Right.
by project.
My only other question was, is there any sort of issue on our side or on Safe Built side where you're looking at estimated at 30% rather than the standard 65%? Or is that something?
Yeah, what we did was, the state still won't really, we still perform all electrical and plumbing inspections. So normally under what we would do for a normal commercial, we charge 65% land fees, but we're gonna waive that extra 35%. saying that the state's gonna do the electrical and plumbing inspection. So we're just gonna take that amount off the plan review portion because we're not gonna review the electrical or plumbing plans either. So it's a fair trade.
I fully support waiving 100% of the fee. The partnership we have with the school district, and especially the partnership that Parks and Rec has, guarantees you we take it out of your budget.
Right.
Yeah,
Just because you're still here.
Basically, I'm covering Sakeville's costs.
Open
Yes.
Just
keeping safe.
Just keeping them whole.
Right.
But
It's getting thick in here pretty quick.
Yeah, Frank wants to write the
I
check.
would, I would just say that as a former principal and working at Tozer every week, all these needs are really evident in a school. And Tozer, I can speak very carefully about it because I'm there all the time and I see the things that are happening. And I just talked with Kirk about some playground stuff that we're gonna do that would just make it safer and better for the kids. And so I would be fully in favor of this, just to make it happen for the schools. And I just wanna keep our partnership with the schools and the town, the way it is. It's wonderful now, and I should include Safe Built too in that comment. So I just know that there are needs, and I won't get into the negative impact, but that's hurting like the devil, isn't it, Stephanie?
Thank you very much.
And I'm glad you did bring that up, because Safe Built has been a great partner, and they're gonna make the process for the district go much smoother than if you go through the state for inspections.
Right. And I think my only other comment would be additionally, since I know how many of these projects are related to the security of the buildings and the students, I think that's huge from a community standpoint, and I'm sure the chief would fully support that.
And we're seeing what's
Put words in
happening.
his mouth, but
We're seeing what's happening at the high school. My God, that innovation center is gonna be absolutely fantastic. And so I'm saying just to keep with that partnership.
Okay, I
So-
think that's pretty unanimous then,
Okay.
that it's that
So-
100%.
This is on tonight's agenda for action, so that'll be staff recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your support, we appreciate it.
So moving
Thanks for coming, guys.
on to item 3, the Weld RE4 Kiger water storage discussion. Mr. McCarter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have any slides. Sorry, Eric. I would tack onto your slides if I could. But we're in a conversation with the district about a request that they've made to store Loudon ditch water, Loudon Irrigation Company water in Kiger Reservoir, which is owned by the town. And we already have an existing agreement with the district regarding water augmentation, water wells. Their wells are now included in our augmentation plan. We've got an accounting set up. But this is a new storage right. This would be either an amendment to the existing agreement or a standalone agreement that would allow us to allow the district to store water in Kiger. And the primary benefit to the district and honestly to us is that water can carry over from season to season. The agreement that we have today on Kern Reservoir says that water, the Loudon water, can be bumped out at some point, and that it just flows down the river. It doesn't, I'll call it wasted. So what we're trying to do with the Kiger transaction is allow us to keep storage in a reservoir that the town controls, and the issue has come up, what's the rate? What's the storage rate? And the market storage rate, as I understand it, approaches $1,000 per acre foot. That's considerably higher than the storage rate that we have in our existing agreement for Kern Reservoir. So we tried to figure out, well, what's a reasonable storage rate? So we did some math. Wade was involved, Brad Grassmick was involved, and Dennis was involved to try to figure out what is our cost, what's our storage cost at Kiger. What did it cost us to buy it? What did it cost us to put the pump facility in it? Those are the major infrastructure costs. So we did some math and came up with a number that's in the $100 to $150 per acre foot range. That's the number that we have proposed, and I'm not asking for negotiating strategy or negotiating authority. I'm just here to let you know that our number isn't just made up. Our number is based on cost.
That's our cost.
And I'm not asking you to give me authority, but I also wanted to make sure that you were aware, we haven't come to agreement on this storage rate. And I wanted you to be prepared in case representatives of the district came to you and said, what's up with this transaction? Why can't we get this finalized? I'm not ignoring the people behind me. I know they're here.
He's not turning around.
What I am trying to say is that we are working on it. We have a model. We were hoping that we could get a written proposal from the district, and we're still asking the district to do that for us. And if we can't work that number out based on their proposal, then we may come to you in executive session and ask for some negotiating authority. Because I believe it was Ken Lind who said, whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. And we have this storage vessel.
She says making beer.
Water's and making beer. Water's different, and we need to recognize that there is a market for storage that is quite high, and we don't expect the district to pay that. So I'm here just to tell you that we are working on it, but if the district has a proposal they want to make, we'll entertain it, and if we can't get it sorted out at the staff level, I may come back to you for negotiating authority.
You said, talk about the capacity. When Kiger is filled,
Yes.
they have to let their water go there, so that's not gonna change, is it?
Well, we have 1,200 plus or minus acre feet of storage capacity in Kiger.
Okay.
We can regulate Kiger in such a way as to keep it full. We can use the Loudon to do that. We don't have that same privilege in the Kern. When it comes to the Kern, that water has to be released at some point.
Okay.
You
And
said
that's
1,200 acre feet is what we have in
at
Kiger?
Kiger.
Feet,
Yeah.
Kiger.
And the district's not asking for a lot of that capacity. It's
Just take the
100 of the 1,200, so it's not a lot of capacity, which is another factor that goes into what the rate should be. But,
And is that 100 to 150, is that a month per acre foot per month charge or?
per year.
Per-
acre foot per year.
Oh,
It's a,
so it's $150 for the whole year?
yeah,
That's not gonna make up the 31 million for the parks, is it?
no, sorry.
19,000 for the schools?
We could adjust that rate.
How much for the brush recycling?
How much?
I'm losing control here. Madam Mayor.
We're gonna find that money. We're gonna find that money
Okay.
somewhere.
Paul
So-
said,
So there's no action,
No.
this is just
I'm just letting you
informational?
know that we're talking, and that we should be able to work it out, and if we're unable to work it out, then we will come to you in a confidential session and give you some solutions. Just so you know, we have a great water relationship with the districts. Our current arrangement is working out for both parties, and it's just a question of fastening Kiger to that.
it's good to see water go down, that could have been stored, right, so we can help.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Well, I really underestimated this. I figured 30 minutes for each of the first two, and then 15
Well,
minutes
can
for him.
we
But I
get
didn't
those-
realize that.
I
Is
don't know what's
Stacy
gotten
here,
us
can we
here.
get the executive session
Are you not
going
feeling
on right after this?
Huh?
How
Are
long
you
will
not
that
Our
feeling
take?
guest, our
Oh, really?
guest
Seriously?
I won't be
isn't
here.
isn't planning to be here till 7.
Oh, okay.
I apologize.
That's okay.
Usually it's
It's
not
okay to
enough
have-
time
It's okay to have a little time to.
process things. So we can go over future meetings agenda, for
Okay.
one thing.
You can eat more too.
Absolutely, if it's still there. Amanda was gonna take the food upstairs
You
for
guys
executive
can-
session, so if there's.
Having talked with these manager applicants, town manager, and you're talking about water, how many wells does the school district have? I mean, can we tap into some of those wells, to help us in the long range for water? Just kidding, guys. But we talked about the water shortage and what it's gonna take to make it up,
I
and
know. a treatment plant in the football field.
And a treatment
Just making
plant.
stuff.
We'll trade
Okay.
$19,000.
You'll be seeing a new idea April 9th. Well, then, because that one they'll be presenting.
Okay.
April
Cool.
9th.
April.
Second,
Or April
the water
2nd.
rates?
Yeah, well, the water project,
Oh, that's the,
16.
the 16th.
Water
yeah, the
options.
16th, we're gonna have a water options
Yeah,
conversation.
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, that's the
yeah,
16th.
April 16th.
Lots of water stuff. So, under future meetings, so next Monday is April 2nd, and that's preliminary review of the water rate study. We're trying to get that information so we can get it to you on Wednesday to give you a little extra time. There is a lot of data in there, so I figure if you had an extra day or two, it might be helpful for you to read through it and field any questions over to Dean that you have prior to the meeting to kind of, so that he has an idea of what he needs to be researching and putting together for you all. On April 9th, we'll have just your general board manager attorney monthly meeting with dinner. The one thing Rick has asked to bring forward is speed trailers. Water Valley has requested to put some speed trailers over in their subdivision, so he wants to talk with you all about that a little bit, probably take 15-20 minutes, but not a big chunk of time for you, so you can have time to,
Talk about purchasing board?
that's what it sounds like. So, he just wants to make sure that you're aware and how this could look and work, because if we get asked from one subdivision, it
It's
could
gonna-
go on
sure.
for another, so
Okay,
he wants to make sure you're in the loop and understand what that means. And as the mayor alluded to, on April 16th, we're talking about water options for Windsor. There's just, as you all know, there's so much happening related to water in Windsor. So, what staff is doing is putting together all that information, hopefully, in some sort of concise packet, so that you have an idea of where we're at. I think it'll be good information for your new town manager as well, something, I'll start kind of feeding some information to Shane too, so that he has an idea of what's happening, and I think that water piece will be really important for you all moving forward. I have tentatively scheduled the retail study overview on May 7th, if you're comfortable with that. Katie Press is available to come in and give that presentation.
Let's get back to that.
And moving back, I forget, on April 23rd is the day that the new town board members will get sworn in. And in the past, the outgoing and incoming town board members have gone out to dinner beforehand, during the work session time. Is that something you are all interested in doing, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Continue to do that? Okay, we'll make some reservations, maybe at Hearth or something like that. Would that work? Because we've usually gone within walking distance.
I don't think the Hearth is open on, it is open on Monday night, is it?
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
Friday, they
I'm
don't
thinking
do,
lunchtime.
they don't do lunch Monday through Thursday.
Yeah, but I noticed you had it at 6.
We can move it.
I'd move it up a little earlier.
Okay, yeah, I've got it highlighted, so 5:30?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it 5:30, perfect. Let's see here, May 28th is a regular meeting day, which is also Memorial Day, so I'll go on ahead and, if it's okay with you all, to, I'll put something on the consent calendar at the next meeting, canceling that meeting, since I doubt if anybody wants to come in on Memorial Day for a meeting. Future work session topics, I think it's the same list of culprits. Your code update meeting, Johnny Olson will be at the Larimer County Regional Elected Officials meeting. I still haven't gotten in contact with
But
him
that's the
personally.
first
That's
weekend.
April 4th,
And
so,
Miles is going to that. I can't go, because that's the same night as MPO.
April 4th? I thought they moved it from a night that wasn't MPO, because that was a specific question.
Because it's the first
That's gonna be some key. people.
Thursday, MPO's always the first.
That would
That's
be Wednesday.
Oh, wait,
That would be
wait, wait.
Wednesday.
Okay,
Yeah, because we purposely made sure it wasn't on an MPO night, it's a
Okay.
Wednesday. The election is the 3rd, so that's
okay,
Tuesday.
then we should be, for some reason, it was still, something was showing up, those two were showing up together.
Interesting, okay,
Okay.
I'll double check on calendars. But,
Okay, yep.
Is it 5:30 this
So he will
Wednesday?
be at that
yeah,
meeting.
he'll be at that, so I figure if anything, we can check in with him and try to get him scheduled on a calendar since I'm not able to.
And that's just you and Miles, or that's the?
No, it's the whole board was invited,
Yeah,
the whole board was invited, and one of the things
Oh, yeah, I
that,
know that.
but he's invited, isn't
That
he
was the
attending
April
something
2nd.
this week, or, yeah, he's
You thought it
attending.
was last week, but it was April 2nd, so.
Oh, yeah, that new
Yeah,
Larimer
so that
County.
work session.
That is,
gonna-
however, the night of the I-25 coalition meeting. April 4th. But
Oh, we try. All the managers get together, we're comparing calendars of all our elected officials. It's kind of funny.
It says Timnath, has there been a location nailed
No,
down?
I don't have an exact location yet. They're trying to get a head count, which is one more question I have for you, Madam Mayor. Some of the other municipalities that are having elections at the same time as we are inviting their candidates to that meeting as well. Would you like me to extend that invite or just leave it to to our current elected officials?
Thank you.
Or how does anybody feel about it? I did not give an answer back.
because I would just leave it, because it's a public meeting, and
Yeah,
they
it's a
could
public
come,
meeting,
they
so
could
they
come if
show
they
up.
wanted to.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just had to throw it out because
Yeah.
I've been asked, and I was not gonna make an executive decision.
Do we know what time for that?
You know, I think it's at 5:30, but they're
5:30,
finishing, they were asking for head counts and.
So kind of the usual.
Yeah, the usual, yeah, about 5:30. If there's any changes, I'll let you know, and I will certainly add in location once that's determined. I think they were trying to get the head count to determine where they were gonna host it. So, we'll go from there.
And is this Wednesday's at 5:30?
This Wednesday's at 5:30, yep.
Okay.
We have about 80 attending, which is a much larger number than in the past. We're usually like around 60. So I think maybe having the advisory board dinner out at Embassy Suites has changed of venue, has maybe encouraged more people to come. We didn't set it up for PowerPoint access, but it's gonna have a podium with the speaker, and I will, with the mic, and I will have information for you to,
Okay.
about each advisory board and things that they've
Okay,
done along with their names, so you can call them up. And we ordered some mugs, etched mugs, and they have gift cards for Mr. Yo's and for Starbucks in them. So it'll be just kind of fun, and Hugh and Susanna were so excited to have us get some gift cards from them.
Do we
That
have
was a really
leftover
good
chairs from last year?
No, God, no. They
I
just-
have one if you need
They-
one.
they-
Thanks for your help, here's a chair.
Yeah, that was,
I don't
I'm
wanna
just
give mine
teasing,
away.
Betty.
that was, no, and I was laughing
I'm
because
just
we did.
kidding.
No, that was a good thing.
It was
too.
a good
They had
thing.
jackets.
No, it was-
I love how
Yeah.
Jackets.
I thought, and everybody really liked the chairs. There was a couple that we just, the advisory board members would not show up to their meetings, and so staff was, traipsing them to wherever, the meeting was, and they wouldn't show up to take their chair, so I was just laughing about it. And we did, and having it out at Embassy Suites is much more expensive, so the gifts this year are smaller, so that we could stay within budget.